Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're unpacking a massive, fundamental shift in how we actually need to value one of the most dissected companies on the market. We're looking at Nvidia. Because as data security rapidly becomes national security, AI infrastructure is no longer just an optional tech upgrade. It's a strict strategic imperative. Let's get right into it.
Now, for years, the market has been debating a core question, right? Is Nvidia just a cyclical hardware vendor riding this huge capital expenditure wave, or are we seeing them transition into something far more permanent, embedded national infrastructure? Think about it. If they just sell chips, their revenue is highly vulnerable to hardware cycles. But if they're literally the new foundation of a nation's intelligence, the durability of that revenue changes completely.
Part 1. The new digital borders. Why data dictates hardware. Look, we're watching countries draw literal, hard borders around their data right now, and this macro paradigm shift is exactly what's creating a uniquely captive market for Nvidia's specific advantages. Let's consider what sovereign data actually is in practice. We are way past the era of data just being used to serve targeted ads. Today, governments are treating citizen, industrial, and institutional data as a highly sensitive, strategic national asset. Controlling that data means controlling intelligence, and this instantly shifts Nvidia's ecosystem from a corporate nice-to-have into a strict, non-negotiable necessity to protect the nation's actual sovereignty. Historically, countries were totally fine renting compute from foreign public clouds, but not anymore. Relying on foreign infrastructure introduces massive surveillance risks and regulatory headaches. Geopolitical independence strictly requires data residency. You simply can't guarantee sovereignty if your nation's classified intel is sitting on a server you don't actually control. So, this shifts massive amounts of capital straight into localized, sovereign AI buildouts, and that is Nvidia's exact, undisputed domain. Think about it this way. AI capacity is no longer just a software deployment. It's foundational national infrastructure, very much like your telecom grids or energy networks. When governments sit down to plan for the next 20 years of global competitiveness, AI compute is right there at the center of the blueprint. And who is supplying the foundation of that grid? Nvidia. They aren't just boxing up and shipping hardware anymore, they are the sole enablers of a nation's strategic capacity. Moving to part 2, more than just AI chips, the execution reality. Let's slow down here and look at the operational reality on the ground. Because sovereign AI isn't just some drag race for the fastest piece of silicon. It's a full ecosystem play, and that is Nvidia's ultimate trump card.
You see, building sovereign AI heavily favors companies that can provide a complete end-to-end infrastructure stack. You absolutely need compute, sure, but you also need the networking, the software libraries, the security protocols, and the long-term maintenance. Governments aren't buying graphics cards to play video games here. They are procuring immensely complex systems to run at a national scale. This reality shifts the competitive advantage sharply away from standalone pure-play chip startups and funnels it directly toward a holistic provider like Nvidia.
And this brings us directly to Nvidia's core structural advantage. They offer a comprehensive, basically turnkey ecosystem. We're talking the CUDA architecture, the integrated networking, the hardware systems, extensive software libraries, and a massive web of deployment partners. For a government buyer trying to piece together a fragmented system from 5 different vendors, it's a logistical nightmare. Nvidia's integrated stack completely removes that deployment complexity. They are really one of the only players on the globe genuinely capable of delivering at this sovereign scale.
Just think about the stakes for a second. National AI infrastructure projects carry immense political, security, and operational risk. Government agencies are notoriously fundamentally risk-averse. They want proven, mature ecosystems. Now, a competitor might have a genuinely great chip on paper, right? But they completely lack the deployment credibility and the 10-year track record. That massive institutional trust gap structurally favors the incumbent. It deeply favors Nvidia's strategic positioning.
Part 3. The infrastructure lock-in, redefining the moat. Let's explore what actually happens after the initial sale is made, because this is where Nvidia's hidden and arguably deepest moat truly lies. We really have to separate a standard enterprise IT upgrade from a national infrastructure rebuild. If a corporation's new software has a bug, maybe they miss a quarterly revenue target. Bad, but manageable. But a national AI rebuild? A failure there could mean a collapse in defense logistics or financial security. There is quite literally zero tolerance for failure. Because these national systems are so highly sensitive, once Nvidia is fully embedded in there, ripping them out becomes almost impossibly dangerous. let's walk through the incredibly painful reality of what displacing Nvidia actually takes. It is not a simple vendor switch. First, you have to retrain your massive national models from scratch on a totally new architecture. Second, you have to migrate highly classified data across unproven bridges. Third, you're rewriting your entire software stack to function without Nvidia's CUDA platform. And finally, you have to redesign your entire operational workflow. It is a complete ground-up system rebuild.
0. That is the exact level of tolerance political systems have for migration failure on critical infrastructure. Look, no defense minister wants to be the person who accidentally took their country's intelligence network offline for a year just to save a few bucks on a competing chip. This intense structural risk aversion creates incredibly sticky, durable customer relationships for Nvidia. The technical barriers to leaving are high, for sure, but the institutional barriers, they are virtually insurmountable.
Ultimately, sovereign AI is not an off-the-shelf product. It demands incredibly deep customization for local languages, specific regulations, and highly unique data governance laws. That level of intense tailoring turns Nvidia from a simple hardware vendor into an embedded foundational layer of the government itself. And here's why that matters. The deeper the customization, the deeper Nvidia's roots grow, long after that initial hardware sale.
Part 4. A new valuation framework. So how do we actually price this as investors? Let's rethink the framework the broader market is currently using to value Nvidia as an asset.
Historically, semiconductor companies just get valued on a cyclical hardware multiple. The market naturally assumes a boom and bust cycle. But if sovereign AI essentially embeds Nvidia into the core foundation of global nations, making them nearly impossible to replace, well, we have to seriously challenge that cyclical assumption. Infrastructure assets receive durable, long-term valuation support. If the market starts viewing Nvidia less like a traditional cyclical chip maker and more like a critical national utility, we could see a massive structural shift toward a highly durable infrastructure-style premium.
Because the real value of sovereign AI isn't just today's massive revenue, it is tomorrow's strategic entrenchment. Sovereign AI literally hardwires Nvidia into national infrastructure, meaning its long-term competitive durability is arguably growing even faster than its short-term sales. An infrastructure-level lock-in, that is the absolute hardest moat for any competitor to cross. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making investment decisions.